The draft is coming, and are you ready for war? Is America ready for war? Because all the things are showing that we are heading in that direction. And this video, in reality, is going to prove that. It's going to show that to you. Stay to the end. Sit back and relax and listen to all this. I mean, as much relaxation as you can do with the topic we're talking about today. But I'm going to show you something that's coming that's so huge it's going to impact and affect every single one of us. And as preppers, we need to prepare for this as best as possible. First off, if you didn't already know, which I'm sure you do, the military is simply not making their numbers. And that's the scary part is this. The reason is we're not even at war right now. We're in a peaceful time, so to speak. I mean, the world is on fire. Of course it is. But as far as like us in America, I mean, we are still, I mean, most Americans, I think, are living in a state of denial where they don't even see anything happening out there. They'll kind of see on the news, oh, look, Ukraine and Russia or China and Taiwan or the Middle East. And they're just kind of like, oh, that's over there. Hey, let's order takeout from somewhere tonight. And I'm not debating that we shouldn't have a little bit of relaxation. I get that. But we need to be ready for what's coming. And I think a lot of people have their heads buried in the sand. When we compare it to our enlistments today, compare it with 2013, our enlistments are down by 35%. 35% less people are enlisting now at peacetime, with a lot of people's heads buried in the sand. With America not actively, I mean, as far as our country goes, actively at war. We're funding wars. Of course we do. That's what we do. And this, of course, this whole video is about talking about enlistments in war, not necessarily saying who's really at cause here. That's a whole different discussion. We're just going to talk about our ramifications for what we have to deal with. But with the enlistments down so much, the big problem is this. Think about this. We are at relative peacetime right now. What was going on in 2013? Operation Enduring Freedom. We certainly were not at peace at that time. We actually actively had soldiers fighting a war in the Middle East. And our numbers for enlistment are down now compared to then. 35% down. That's amazing. Because understand that Enduring Freedom was like basically subsequent to 9/11, and there was a rally cry in the United States. Again, we're not getting into justified or not, but there was a rally cry, and people wanted to step up and say, I need to defend our country. And there's a lot more enlistments taking place. But now it's peacetime, people are relaxed, and it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? We kind of think that, oh, at war, people won't join. At peace, they will, because they're just going to serve a 4-year enlistment at peacetime. It's usually the other way around, because at peace, people are kind of relaxed and saying, oh, you know what, military is just another job. But when a war happens or something catastrophic happens, hold on to that. That's what I'm getting to in this video. Then people are like, oh my gosh, I need to step up and take care of things and serve my country and protect my family, protect my freedom, et cetera, et cetera. It's a rally cry. It's a war cry. And that's why during war times, movies like, well, All Quiet on the Western Front's been banned in countries because they don't want to have people see the hell part of war. And it's there. Of course it is. But I think when you look at today's culture, I'm going to go ahead and say youth, but we're talking about obviously Gen Zers or people even in their 20s. It's a whole different viewpoint on the military. And I think a big part of it, and you can agree with this or not, put it in the comments below, I think that a lot of the people today, it's not the military itself per se, even though it's part of it too. It's the belief that I'm not going to fight for a military that's connected to a corrupt country. I think that's part of it. It's part of it. But it's not all the bigger picture, because I think that most of our youth today who are not joining the military are deluded and think our government is nice and cozy and gushy and everything's just fine. I disagree on that. But again, even though America's not on fire right now, per se, the fire's happening soon. We're pouring gas right now, just waiting for it to kindle, because we're constantly inundated with articles like this. North Korea warns of a dear price for the United States and South Korea due to a joint military exercise. This is normal, by the way. They're always yelling this. Russia warns the United States of the risks of World War III. This comes on the heels of Ukraine now advancing into Russian territory. Well, that's a huge thing, and Russia is not going to sit around and let that happen. And the U.S. prepares for a threat of a joint Chinese, Russian, and North Korean nuclear strike. That's exactly what we're looking at. And it's not even just nuclear. But as we see these countries joining together, we're seeing a separation of a new axis and allies. Think of it that way. But overall, the United States military, the Department of Defense is like, I'm kind of stressed because we're not getting the people we need to. And again, we're not getting into the whole thing, is this orchestrated or not? That's a whole different discussion. Everybody has their opinions on that. The moral of the story is this: we need to really keep an eye on this, because as preppers, as people who live in the United States, as people who depend on the food chain, electricity, etc., raw materials, we're going to be very much affected by this. And I have a lot of people say, oh, that's not going to happen. We're not going to go to war, et cetera, et cetera. Think about this. Would you agree that our military and Department of Defense and government is very stressed about low numbers in the military? As we are building up forces, even more than we have in the last 10 years across the world, especially in the Pacific, we're expecting, no, we are preparing for a war that's going to take place. In fact, most military and government officials say it's going to happen in the next few years. Again, orchestrated or not, it's going to happen. That's the point. That's the moral of the story. And if the government, those people who are directly involved with it, are stressed out, it's not me saying that we're going to war. They are saying it. And they're the ones that have the keys to the tanks and the ships, if you know what I mean. And so therefore, we have to prepare for that. And we've got to be able to fill those billets. So we've seen this too. Defense budget talks reignite debate over military draft for women. And the Senate version of the National Defense Authorization Act, does two things. Number one, it makes it so women can be included in this. And two, it's an automatic or automated draft now. It's not set up where junior has to go sign up now. It's going to be automatic. Again, why are they doing this? Because we're in the digital age and they want to make it easier for them? No, they're trying to make sure they catch everybody in the basket so they know exactly how many people they can have to serve and how many they will actually send in the military when the time comes, when the draft does happen. And of course, there it is. Draft Our Daughter's proposal returns to the Pentagon budget bill. And that's on the heels of, look at this, half of Gen Zers support Marxism and socialism. So we're in this very interesting conundrum for the fact that they want to reinstate the draft, or at least be ready to do it if and when the time comes. I think it's just a matter of when. And we find that over half of our younger people are supporting socialism and Marxism and not the good old American way, our constitutional republic, which is what I fought for. That's interesting. Because when we see these same people, are they going to go to war for America, which is a constitutional republic, going against a war that is against a country that is like socialistic or communistic? It's difficult to say. But we're seeing more problems than simply just their political or their geopolitical beliefs. We're simply seeing that more and more of those people in that age group are not qualified to join the military too. Not qualified either physically speaking, we have obesity and we have certain diseases and stuff, but also mentally. We're actually seeing an increase in the amount of people who mentally couldn't handle the situation. And I'm not talking about just combat. Combat always has a very, very, very small few of people compared to the rest of the military who can handle it. There's been a lot of people I've seen it go in combat and they completely just wig out, and next day they're gone, you'll never see them again. I don't think it's for everybody, you know what I'm saying? But combat is one of those, unfortunately, necessary evils, is it? I mean, if we're talking about protecting our homeland, absolutely. But we find that the combat vets always stick together because, well, you know what? It takes a very unique person and personality to make that happen. So not only are we looking at a possible or probable draft, but it's going to be slim pickings. A lot of them can't qualify. A lot of them can't handle it. But look at this Pew Research data. It says 23% of young people between 17 and 24 qualify to join the military. In other words, 77% of young people cannot qualify to join the military. And 53% of Americans aged 18 to 29 years old have a negative view of the military. So next I want to get into an email I received. I get emails all the time, obviously. People's opinions, people's views and stuff. And I always try to weigh it to see if it really is opinion or is it based on fact. Sometimes I can't make that determination, but I try. I always want to make sure we have good, truthful information. This email seems legit. Let me show you. An ex-military wife here with long-standing connections. Some connections public, some not. I have reliable sources, but I have no access to that source material. In other words, can't get it to you. And a lot of times I'm like, well, okay, there we go. That shows it's not true, but let me explain that it is. She wants to address conscription. We know that 70% of conscription-age men aren't fit for duty due to physical, obesity, mental health, and other smaller groups. And I completely agree. In fact, we just saw that. We saw literally the Pew Research data that says over 75% are not fit. So this fits right along. So far, it seems legit, her email. There will be, by large, a very even large draft, and they'll be done by stages. Okay, this is interesting because this is how it's always been in the military too. There'll be a small portion of people like, for example, obese, but other disqualifiers may not truly disqualify them because they can actually find a job for you. You can't do this certain thing, that's fine. You can sit at a computer, right? So there's your job in the military. Because it's not always the combat people, right? It's always like overall the army of one, basically working together. So what do they do after a small percentage who are fit? They'll move on the age bracket up, And that will continue until the initial needs are met and more are needed. She's speaking the truth here. She doesn't need to give sources. Historically speaking, we've seen this is absolute truth, that literally it's going to step up, up, and up. Uh-oh, we don't have enough people. Time to raise the age of the draft. And right now, for both men and women, yes, there are differences in the two, by the way, but we see DEI and all this other woke stuff saying that, well, there's no gender. Men and women are the same, so we can actually now draft both of them, and that's what they're doing. But on top of that, it's the age too. So right now it's 18 to 25. It's very common when we see wartime it going up to 35 years old. And a lot of people think, well, they won't go much higher than that. But other people ask me all the time, will it go much higher? Of course it will. It'll go way up there. Let me show you this. This is from Wikipedia. They called it in World War II the old man's draft. In 1942, the fourth registration was held nationwide, which encompassed men from ages 45 to 64, earning it the nickname the old man's draft, up to age 64. And in Nazi Germany, as they were losing the war, they had 80-year-olds fighting. So don't think that, first off, somebody in your family is obese or has maybe a couple mental health conditions. And by the way, I need to tell you this. When you actually come across somebody who literally has a mental issue where they can't decipher between, killing and not killing, the military looks for these people. They want to recruit these people because they can actually be their killing machines and not have the regret like everybody else has. But either way, when we talk about older people being drafted in, this is a very real concern and worry. It's a worry in my mind too, because I served in the military, proudly served in the military, but the reasoning for this war, I don't know, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? And I think a lot of people are okay with the military, but the people who are in charge who possibly caused that war, that's a different story. All right. So again, not always used for combat. A lot of people use for all kinds of different types of things, but I want you to understand, and we're going to get to the meat and potatoes in a second, the real reason for this is something far worse is coming. Let me jump back to the email for just a moment. And she said, on the home front, listen to this. Some know that there's various gangs already hardened here in America. China already has literally a small or mid-sized army here in America. As these people come across, they call them foreign nationals. No, they call them illegal immigrants, but they're foreign nationals. They don't want to call them by their real name. They're illegal immigrants, and we'll just kind of let them kind of go. But they're foreign nationals, and they're not being stopped. She continues, how much of our military will be left at home to protect us if we go off to war? Less than usual, especially after deployment, depending on losses, time, etc. What's going to happen as the conscription age goes higher and higher and more people, not even just men, but people go off to war now? Who is going to protect us in America, on our soil? And that's it. I want you to understand what's coming. Let's not even talk about the foreign nationals here. If they're immigrants, they want to be part of the United States, but they don't want to. They want to change the United States. There's some points I need to make. 3 major points, and here's what it comes down to, and please listen to this. Number 1, we have an excellent chance we're going to war. How and when and why, orchestrated, whatever. All that doesn't matter. It matters, obviously, but it doesn't matter to us for the fact that we just have to see what's coming. And if you don't see all the fire erupting around the world right now, then you are blind to it. Okay, you need to realize war is coming. We have more things taking place now than took place prior to World War II. So it is coming. And number 2, the reason I say we don't have to worry about it is because, as preppers, it doesn't matter how or where, on the most part, and you need the intelligence, but you have to understand that it's going to affect you and me. We're going to see at the very least rationing. We're going to see empty shelves. We're going to see price hikes. We're going to see our family going off to war. But beyond that, I want you to understand that if this war is initiated or instigated by these foreign nationals of the United States, there's going to be far less people, and that's what the email was saying, by the way. Very astute the way she put this out, that we're going to have less people here to protect us. The police are going to be overwhelmed. There will not be National Guard here to protect you. Who's going to protect you? You will. You're the only person. And if you are the person who is a protector, let's say I am left behind and I don't have to go off to the military, then I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to protect my family. I'm going to protect my neighbors. I will do everything I can to protect my neighborhood, my society in the area. And you are called to that same action, by the way, because when and if this happens, if we see a major erupting on our soil and all these foreign nationals are fighting everywhere, the cops are going to be overwhelmed, and we're going to have so many people overseas fighting that literally it's going to be left to us to be able to take care of that. Very, very frightening times. Then we get to 3. Number 3, with low recruitment, who will fight? Tell me, Enduring freedom was popular because it's off to war, protecting our country. That was a rally, justified or not. Would you agree? There was a rally call because of 9/11. Enduring freedom happened after that. Enduring freedom, taking our freedoms away, but we're not going there. But we saw a rally cry of people joining the military. Am I right? So you understand that if we get into the side that this is orchestrated, they know this. They understand this. And they know if something happens on American soil, now we have justification for our war. It could be a false flag. It could be we see something coming, let's not stop it. It could be really an actual attack on us, and they just simply use that as a scapegoat to springboard us into the war that's coming. And I don't know what it could be. I mean, the speculation, EMP, Russia, China, Middle East flaring over, the nationals. I mean, there could be so many things. But again, it comes down to this. It doesn't matter per se. What matters is how we prepare for this and how we get ready. And that's the most important message that we have, not just for today, but for today's times. Stockpile food and water, of course, stockpile stuff, but you must be able to protect you and your loved ones and your neighbors, because this could be, people talk about a civil war. I see this war as much more likely, and it's going to affect every single one of us. So we must prepare for what's coming.